Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 209, How to Make Uncoachable Athletes Coachable. Today we have two questions from Todd about how to do this. Announcements. My NA is bad video is trending now perfectly when Team Liquid is turning it around and looking to actually make it out of groups. So I'm very excited about that. I've been cheering them on the whole time. My prediction still holds that they're going to win the event. The reason I made the video is because 50 bajillion people were messaging me after Team Liquid went 0-4, asking me why NA was bad over and over again, and I wanted them all to stop messaging me. So I made a video saying that the 3 or 4 things that I have always said for the last 5 years about why NA typically, has to climb out of a hole in every single international event, and I put it up on YouTube. So you can check that out on YouTube and stop messaging me on Reddit about what's going on. Okay, other than that, thank you for calling in your questions to the show. We need more. My name is Weldon, if I didn't say that already, and you are the creators of this show. So you guys are the people who call in the questions. That's why it's the Ask Weldon Show. I was just showing you where the Weldon was in this show. And so you can call in those questions at anchor.fm/Weldon Green, and then I will answer them. And it's the Ask Weldon Show, not the Ask Weldon a very specific question in a niche show. So feel free to ask me whatever you want. And if it's a bad question, I won't put it on the show. And bad questions are things like, why are my toes stuck in peanut butter right now? Or will you send me $7 so that I can buy a Slurpee? Those are bad questions. And good questions are things like, why am I really pissed at my brother, and how can I not hit him when I'm tilting out of my mind at his Fortnite play as we're sitting on the couch and he's losing me game after game after game in squads? Those are good kinds of questions. So typically sports psychology, performance psychology, high performance or elite performance, even better, relationship and human interaction. And if you have anything about branding or business, I really like those kind of questions too, because that is what I have to do every single day, all day. And so I'm always trying to learn new things. And some of them are pretty successful, as you can see by my Twitter following account. So you can ask me about how to get 25,000 Twitter followers if you like. Should we jump into the show? Yeah, let's jump into the show. All right, like I said, the first question is from Todd, and he's going to ask a two-parter here. So I'm going to play it once, and then for the second part of the question, I'll just replay it, or else I'll pause it, and we'll restart the question then.
Hey, Weldon, my name's Todd. I'm a high school policy debate coach. If you've never heard about policy debates, pretty intense activity that requires a lot of hours of mental focus and high performance. I've been watching your videos a lot as a fan of TSM, and I thought I'd try to help my students kind of reach their peak performance with some of the techniques that you talk about a lot, that you teach. So I have a two-parter for you about coaching philosophy that I hope you can help me with. So one, how do you go about figuring out a central coach philosophy, and how do you get people to that you're coaching? How do you get them on board with the kind of things like mindfulness and meditation, and if they're kind of skeptical about the ideas at first? Thanks in advance, and have a great show.
All right, I'm gonna fast forward to that second part.
That you're coaching, how do you get them on board? Philosophy. Okay,
I paused it right before the second part of that question, so we'll jump into that after this first parter. So the first part is, how do you create a coaching philosophy? Is that right? How do you determine your coaching philosophy? Okay, so I used to have a framework for this. Let me see if I can dredge it up out of my mind. First of all, I want you to write about your narrative arc. So how is it that you ended up as a coach? What is important to you about changing people's behavior? And why are you motivated to do that? So what is your internal motivation towards coaching and modification of other people's behavior to improve something, right? It's to either improve their performance or to improve them as people or to improve their math grades or whatever it is. What is your personal stake in this? And Number 2, how do people change behavior? You have to write down your personal theory, and I don't care, like, it doesn't matter if you go and you steal a scientific theory. Your personal theory of how people change behavior is going to be an amalgamation of your life, your experience, your anecdotes, your parenting, and then all of the like science that you like scrape off the internet or whatever. The thing that you have to write down is your personal viewpoint or opinion or theory of how it is that people change behavior. What are the antecedents? So what are the things that they need? What are the precursors to changing behaviors? What do they need from themselves? What do they need from you? What do they need from the environment? Like, how is it that people change? Like, what is it, the mechanisms, psychological, physical, like, do they need pain? Can they do it through hugs? These are important questions. Like, some people think you need suffering to change, right? Boot camp sergeants, for example. Other people think that you need, comfort and like freedom of mental space, hug and like soft cushions everywhere so you don't hurt yourself on any sharp edges, and music. So like, how do people change their behavior? And I don't mean like, you can think of this as changing behavior. You can think of it as learning too. You can say like, how is it that people learn? How is it that their minds are formed to have a new skill that they didn't have 7 minutes ago or 7 days ago? You have to write that down. And usually this is a full paragraph. So I say 3 paragraphs. Okay. The third paragraph is how are people motivated? And there's a couple parts to this. So how is it that motivation works? And by that I mean and within this paragraph, you have to talk about both individual motivation. So this is something I noticed this, and this could be a gender difference, so this could just be an anomaly. But I noticed that a lot of guys were turning in papers where they would only write about individual motivation, and they wouldn't talk about social determinants at all. And so if you're a guy in particular, make sure that this paragraph consists of 2 parts. One being individual motivation, so intrinsic motivation when you're alone in a room and you're thinking of undertaking a task, and then social determinants. And remember that these social determinants are applying to you even if you're in a room alone by yourself working on a task. Like, most likely there are a bajillion social determinants of motivation that are like hitting you from all angles. So how is it that humans are motivated both as a social organism and as an individual organism to undertake a task? What is your understanding of the motivation that people have that fuels them? And that is your coaching philosophy, those 3 paragraphs. So your personal narrative arc into like coaching in general, how do people learn or behavior change, and then what is motivation, or how do you see motivation? And if you can operate on those 2 things, learning and motivation, then you're coaching somebody, basically. Like, you can motivate them to learn and improve. And the better you are at the learning part, the learning paragraph, just across all humans, the better coach you're going to be. And the better you are at the motivation part, just across all humans, the better coach you're going to be. You're going to get them at a faster level, and you're going to get them for free, essentially. So that is how you coach. You motivate people to learn. And your philosophy should consist of your personal theory and understanding of those 2 concepts, I think. Okay, so that's the answer to part 1. Let's jump into part 2, which is, how do athletes get on board with mindfulness meditation? I just said the question, but let's listen to it again anyway.
And how do you get people to that you're coaching? How do you get them on board with the kind of things like mindfulness and meditation, and if they're kind of skeptical about the ideas at first? Thanks in advance, and have a great show.
All right. So if they're skeptical of them, just a second, I need a drink. All right. Better. You guys got a close up on my mic there. If they're skeptical of them, first of all, they should be. So it's fine to be skeptical of mindfulness and meditation. And I convince people through a number of different ways, all put together. So I don't think you should try one way. I think you should like put as many in the bucket as you can. First of all, I talk about the foundations of mindfulness and meditation. So what does it do? What is it? And what does it do? And I abstract the spirituality, because a lot of what people are afraid of is the spirituality of meditation. So you can like take that away a little bit. Just talk about mindfulness, and brain training. And I talk about the fundamental science of it. So here's what's happening, here's what you're doing, here's what's happening, and here's the results of it according to research. Then I talk about sports stories. So I share success in sport or in performance from people who are applying mindfulness training techniques and line it up, like line the results up with exactly what the research shows, essentially. I don't have to line the results up. The results line themselves up because that's what research is. It's revealing truth, right? And then I share a bunch of stories of truth. And then I give them quick wins. So then we do an experiment with like one kind, and then and then after that, so we do a little mindfulness, ourselves, and I like demystify it right there in front of them. And then the rest of it is removing barriers. So part of it there is like setting the framework and making them excited about it and saying like, this is what you're going to get when you do this. And then the rest of it is removing barriers. What is the barrier? And then that's empowering. So it's like, what is the barrier preventing you from doing this here and now, or like tomorrow morning or whenever, or like, and somebody's like, well, in the morning I'm just really busy. Okay, well, so let's do it some other time. Okay, when are you unbusy? Okay. Do you have a script? No. Okay, let's get some scripts on your phone. Okay, do you think this is like you're doing it and you think that you're doing it wrong? Okay, well, let's listen to this person who lectures about how there is no wrong way to do it. And when you're listening to the script and going like, oh, this is so cheesy, like that's actually fine. It's not actually you're messing anything up. That's just you being distracted. Bring yourself back, stuff like that. So you can just answer questions and demystify it even more and remove barriers, mental and emotional barriers consistently, and always ask people like, what is stopping you from doing this? What kind of emotion are you feeling that is preventing you from doing that? And just, so that's how I do it. I lay the framework and I justify it using research and sports stories, and then we demystify it with experience so that they know what it feels like, and then we start removing barriers, and then that's it until the actual results come in. And I try to give them quick wins. So I try to always combine it with gratefulness conditioning, which actually kicks off sooner. Like people can feel the effect of gratefulness conditioning and prioritizing their goals really soon. Whereas mindfulness, like you got to train your brain. It's like a muscle. So you're not just gonna get swole overnight when you start training every single day at the gym. And you can talk to them about that, and you can share them the dose amounts that are required to actually make effective training, right? Say like, okay, you're gonna have to dose 8 cumulative hours with the minimum of 5 minutes of training over the course of 9 weeks, in order to start to see effective physical changes in your brain. You might see psychological changes before that. Those are good. At that point, you're going to start seeing physical changes, and you're going to start coping with things better just automatically. You probably aren't even going to notice those, so I'm going to point them out to you, after 3 months of doing this. And that's how it works. I haven't run into a single person in professional esport who didn't work on mindfulness training. I mean, some of them had barriers that prevented them from continuing, right? They couldn't keep up the habit. But that doesn't mean they didn't want to keep up the habit. And I think the reason is because of the ambition, right? Like when you are ambitious, you don't care about what it is. You just want to win. And so you will do anything to improve your chance of success. You don't care about these like embarrassing things like, oh, what's it look like? And oh, it feels weird. And oh, it's like, if you want to win a world championship or a regional championship, little things like, oh, my dress is pink instead of purple, like don't matter anymore. So nobody cares about, the random embarrassment things or like the spirituality things or whatever. They just want tools. And then if you give them tools, they will use them, period. So if your kids are resistant to it, it's likely that their level of ambition towards whatever it is they're applying their increased concentration to is not high enough. So let's say you're like, this will help you and get better at this thing, and they just don't care enough about that thing. Then their ambition is not strong enough to power through the barriers, and so it's not going to happen. And that's going to be not a result of anything that you're doing or anything that they're doing. It's like you can only lower the barriers of training so much. You still have to go to the gym and suffer. Like at some point, you got to walk through the gym doors and lift a heavy weight, and it's going to hurt. And at some point with mindfulness, you have to sit down and you have to do mindfulness for 15 minutes, and it's going to be boring. So the thing that they're getting out of it in terms of the results, they have to want it badly enough for that motivation to wire up correctly. And if they don't, that's not a problem. Like, they're just not ambitious about that. So wait until they're running away somewhere in the future of their life and they run into something that they actually want, and then they will remember your lessons about mindfulness, and they'll rediscipline themselves to do it, and that'll be the moment when it becomes useful to them. That's my recommendation. Okay, that's the show for today. And I thought that the answers are going to be long and convoluted, and that's why I only did 2 questions, but they weren't. And so here we get to end early. Make sure to check out the MAC program. The MAC program is my training program for mental resilience. It's called the Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment Program, and it is the only sponsor that supports this brand and everything that I do. And I decided to do this because I don't want to take a bunch of sponsors for monitors and energy drinks and all that stuff. What I did was I created something that is me that you might want to buy, and I'm selling it as a product. So it's just an online training video course training of me, 47 sessions, 7 modules over 7 weeks, 7 days, 7 modules with 7 sessions each, that take you through the fundamentals of high performance and mental resilience in high performance that I have used with TSM and G2 and CLG. Most notably with CLG, that was the team that I went literally through the exact program with TSM and G2. Obviously, I was in-house, so I got to modify it a lot and embed it in their daily lives. But with CLG, it was literally just calling in and going through these same workshops and videos and then working with them one-on-one. Of course, to win Madison Square Garden, in our epic comeback split of the making CLG relevant again as a brand. So yeah, you can check it out, mindgames.gg/MAC, and you can use the code AskWeldon to get a $5 discount, mostly to signify and to tag where it is that you came from and where you heard about this program from. So if you want to support what I do and you don't want to subscribe on Twitch, actually this is better than subscribing on Twitch, because obviously Twitch takes some of that profit, whereas I get all of this and I get to use it to build the brand, improve the program, build the app, and do all sorts of fun things that like buy food for my kids. Talk to you guys later.